The best decision I ever made for my handmade business. If you're new here, I'm Tiffany Tahaya, the owner of Beadware Love It, and I have shipped and sold over 50K items on Etsy alone. That's not even counting platforms like Amazon, Faire, and TikTok, which I've also had lots of success on. Here on this channel, I'll be teaching you my tips and tricks, the things I went through in my life, tutorials, and all kind of fun stuff. This is basically the behind the scenes of Beadware Love It. Okay, y'all. So look, I just recorded I just recorded this whole video and went to go edit it and it didn't have no audio. So yeah, pregnancy brain is something pregnancy brain is something else because I couldn't even remember to turn the mic on. It's on now though. So yeah, this video is probably gonna be shorter than the first video because I already said what I said and I'm just reiterating and saying what I already said in the video that wasn't recorded. Okay, so let me quit rambling. The best decision I ever made for my jewelry. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Not the beginning, but the beginning of this topic. Okay. So growing up, I ended up in the foster system. I emancipated at 18 in the state of California. And in California, they have lots of resources and things like that to help you when you're in foster care. So one of those things, as I ended up pregnant at the age of 19 with my husband, that I currently still have. Baby number 7 is right here cooking. So I got on this program. I emancipated because I was pregnant. I got on this program and basically they help you skip the waiting list for Section 8. So I had Section 8 for years. Okay. One thing I realized during my life is because I was lucky enough to have Section 8, I didn't work as much as most people, right? I worked part-time jobs. And even working those was a struggle for me. I just was never the type of person who wanted to work a 9 to 5. I mean, it felt like torture. Every time I clicked, I clocked in. I felt like I was selling my soul. Like I'm not even playing. But I did what I had to do for my family. Okay. So I'm working these jobs. Fast forward to around 2018. That's when I started my jewelry business. Okay. Basically one day, I was just sitting and thinking, well, you know what? Let's rewind a little bit. I was on my spiritual journey and I wanted to look a certain way. I wanted to wear certain kind of jewelry and things like that. I was getting into crystals and all that type of stuff. So I was like, yeah, and I'm making stuff. But I was into crystals and things like that. And I was like, I can make it. I'm creative. During that time, I was also an extreme couponer. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on things I could make anyway. Not only did I like making things because I was always creative, I just made all kinds of stuff, DIY, craft stuff. So I was like, I'm going to make some jewelry. I went and bought beads, started making stuff, and was getting compliments. Okay. I went to this one event where somebody I knew said, hey, can you make these bracelets? She had like, it was part of the foster care. It was a lady I knew when I was in foster care. And she still had foster kids and stuff like that. But she was like a coordinator or something. So she would do like events and things like that. And she wanted to give them some bracelets. So I made her like these chakra bracelets, African style, macrame type bracelets for them. And she also let me vend at the event for free. So many people was buying my stuff. And I was just like, dang, I can really sell this, you know? So I started doing the farmers markets. People was buying my stuff. At that time, I was working at the school district in the cafeteria at my kids' school. So, you know, that was the good part. I got to see them every day. But hold on, y'all. I got kids. They don't know how to be quiet. All right. I had to try to get them to be just a little bit quiet. Okay. At least. Damn. All right. So where was I at? Anyways, I'm just going to start. I'm working at the school district, right? And I wasn't working long hours. It was the cafeteria part. So basically I work like 2.5, 3 hours. And then I was also doing health technician for the school district because I had like caregiving in my background. So I was doing that. And I started thinking like, dang, people are really buying my jewelry. Like I could probably really make some money, but how can I dedicate more time towards the farmers markets when I have to work? the farmers markets was kind of like lining up with my schedule. So it was like either or. So I was sharing, that I was making jewelry and stuff like that with people I was working with. And it was like, yeah, you should bring it here. The teachers would love that kind of stuff, right? So I decided to, do that. I set up a whole little display. It was super cute. I had my jewelry out. I had information cards about the jewelry and the pieces because it was crystals and, stuff like that. And nobody bought anything. It didn't even look like nobody touched it. I don't know if they looked at it or what, but and it was fine. That wasn't the problem. Like, I was making sales other places and I knew, I had good jewelry, I had talent, people would buy my stuff, right? But it was just something about how that happened and the energy behind it. I don't know, I can't explain it, but just the lack of support or whatever the case may be, I was just like, this ain't where I'm supposed to be. This happened like this for a reason. Y'all didn't want to support me. Y'all didn't even want to say it's pretty or nothing. Like, and that was one of the things that made me make the best decision I ever made for my jewelry, which was quitting my job and taking my jewelry serious full time. I'm not telling everybody to do that. Like I said, I was in a situation to where I could do that. I was on Section 8 and, if you don't have no income, they will pay your full rent. But I was doing the farmer's market. And at that time, what I was making at the farmer's market was lining up with what I was making at the school district anyway, because I wasn't working that many hours. So I had that. So I'm not telling you or anybody else to go quit their job. But, if it aligns with you, it might be for a reason. And it aligned with me, spiritually, in my soul, and in my life. I was able to do that. So that was the best decision I ever made. I quit my job. As soon as I quit my job, I started listing on Etsy. Then when I started listing on Etsy, that's when COVID hit. COVID hit and everything took off. I don't know. Everybody started shopping online and everything. Then I had the right product. I had a product that was starting to trend that I had already started making before it started trending. And so I was like one of the main people who sold that product. So in another video, I might go over what that product was. So if y'all want to know, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I was selling that item and that kind of blew me up. So I'll forever have love in my heart for that item. And that item really is a story because it went through so much. My designs were stolen. They were on all these other websites. They were stealing my pictures. Yeah. So that really is a story. If y'all want to know, I will go over that story and those items. And I still sell them till today. And I have a story about that, what I just said, because Etsy actually flagged one of my, they took off one of my listings because they thought that I was buying these items mass produced because they're still copying my designs and stuff today. And I actually had to dispute that and they relisted my stuff. I had to like show them proof and that I make these and everything else. So yeah, that's a story in its own. I think I will do a video on that. But yeah, that was the best decision I ever made. Quit my job, went on Etsy, and everything just aligned. Now, it wasn't easy, but, it's what I was supposed to do, so it worked. And that's the video for today. So, see y'all later to the next one.